this session for Sparks, we're going to learn about Abraham, and connected to that, we're going to have a game. Now, the first game is where we run around our homes or do skipping or jumping or whatever. It's a bit like Follow My Leader that we play in Sparks. So what we're going to do is, for mums and dads, it's a bit like the conga, but the person leading does the actions and everybody else has to follow, and we don't hold on to each other. So we go in a line. And we're going to go round the house, wherever you are, or your flat, or wherever you are, and go in some of the rooms. And if you've got stairs, you'll go up the stairs and down again, and do actions as you go along. Obviously, up the stairs, you have to be careful. So go up there quickly and come down again. So I've got Tom here and Freddie. I'm going to take Tom and Freddie with me, and off we go. So what actions are we going to do, Tom and Freddie? I know we'll skip. Let's skip up and down. Skip. Or should we do jumping? You want to do jumping? Okay, we'll do jumping then. We'll do jumping. Oh, that's tiring, isn't it? Oh, you're getting tired. Let's change now. What will we do? Should we hop? And up the stairs. Oh, that's very good. Tom and Freddie, down we go again. Very good. Oh, that's given us a bit of a workout, hasn't it? Very good. Well, should we sit down now? There you are, Freddie. There you are, Tom. Very good. And then we're going to do a game called Kim's Game. And Kim's Game is where there are things that you have to try and remember. So on this tray, I've put things that you might take on a journey. Well, as you can see, there is a camel. We wouldn't normally take a camel with us, but if you lived in the time of the person that we're going to find out about today, called Abram, then you would take a camel with you, because they didn't have cars, buses or trains in those days. So what have we got here? There's a map, there's a t-shirt, all that clothing, there's a camel, there's some soap and a sponge, there's a plaster, there's some bread, there's some name labels for your luggage, there's a bottle of water, very important, there's a pen and paper, there's a toothbrush and some toothpaste, and there's a doggy purse, and there's an apple. Do you think you can remember those? Right, well, we're going to cover them over now. And then you can see if you can remember them all. Lay that down. There we are. Now have a go and see if you can make a note of them. Now, those boys and girls that can't write yet, what I suggest you do is ask your mums and dads or whoever's looking after you to just make a little note of the things, and then right at the end you can check. There's a picture of all the things, whether you've got them right. Okay. I'm glad that you're able to join me for Sparks today. Seems a bit strange not having you with me, listening and doing things. So I brought some friends along, got the Paw Patrol, as you can see behind me, and I've also brought Freddie and Tom, so the teddy bears. So they're going to listen to the story. But first of all, how's it been? Being at home and learning, instead of being in school learning at home, you haven't been able to see your friends or some family maybe, your grandmas and your nannies and your granddads and grandpas, maybe your cousins. You haven't been able to see them unless you've actually been able to do it electronically via either Zoom, which I've been learning all about, or FaceTime. There are all sorts of things we can do these days, but it's not quite the same as giving someone a hug, is it? But we have to keep distance from everybody to keep ourselves safe. And then there's the daily walk. I know that some of you have been going on a daily walk because I've been also on my daily walk and I've seen some of you, and that's been lovely. And Easter's been and gone, hasn't it? And I've still got one Easter egg. So I'm going to carry on eating it a little bit, and then once that's gone, that's it. Anyway, Easter, we remember Jesus, don't we? And how he rose from the dead, having died on the cross, which we remember on Good Friday. And we were learning about that in Spark the last few weeks, and how God had promised and planned it all so that we could become friends of God, because we know we're not perfect, really, don't we? We know we all need Jesus to help us, and we need Jesus to save us and rescue us, just like drowning people need a lifesaver, don't they? Anyway, the story we were telling you the last 2 weeks about Jesus is in a book in the Bible, in the New Testament part of the Bible, which is the second part of the Bible. The first part of the Bible is called the Old Testament, and the Bible is God's instruction manual. That is, it tells us how to do things, how we should live our lives, so that we have happy lives, because God wants us to be kept safe and happy. And he wants us to get to know him better too. Now, today's story is in that first part of the Bible called the Old Testament, from the book called Genesis. Now, it's many, many, many years before Jesus. Now, if I had the timeline that we have at Sparks, I could show you right from the beginning, but instead I've done this 4-picture thing, which skips a lot. But today we're going back to the book of Genesis, where we're first of all at the beginning of the Bible, which is true. The Bible is a true book. God made the world, didn't he? He created the world. He made it, and it was lovely. And as you can see from that picture, it was a perfect world. And then God made people. He made Adam and Eve. And they lived in a garden called Eden. And it was a beautiful garden. And God said to them they could eat anything they wanted, except they couldn't eat from the tree of life. Do you think Adam and Eve did what God said? Or do you think they were tempted? A bit like when our mums and dads tell us that we can't do something. For some reason we want to do it, even though we know that normally our mums and dads have our best interests at heart. They want us to do what's right and to keep us safe. Well, Adam and Eve were no exception, and they went and they took some of the fruit off the tree that they were told not to. And because of that, God sent them out of the lovely garden and made it so they couldn't go back there. So their friendship with God was broken. It wasn't right anymore. And then, in the Old Testament, there were various different special men and women that God used to try and help the people that were living at that time to come back to God. And for a bit they would do. And then they'd go and be disobedient again. They'd go and do their own thing again. And that is why one of them was called Abram, who later became Abraham. And that's his wife Sarah there. And when we start our story, she hasn't got any children, even though she's elderly. But even then, the people kept on doing wrong things. And that is why God decided to send his son, Jesus, that we've been learning about at Easter, to show us how we should live and to save us, to rescue us. And that's what we remember at Easter, when Jesus, sadly, we've learnt about all the miracles that he did, all the wonderful things, the kind things, the helpful things, the lovely things he did to people. And he taught them all about his heavenly Father. He explained what things in the Old Testament, because that's all they had then, meant. But the religious leaders didn't like it, did they? And they handed Jesus over to the Romans, and they decided that they were going to kill Jesus, and they put him on a wooden cross and he died. But that wasn't the end, was it? Jesus rose 3 days later from the dead, which is what we remember at Easter. And that meant that Jesus had made it possible for us to be in a right relationship with God, that we could be friends with God if we put our trust in Jesus. So, going back to the story, we've learnt about that this last term. So this term, we're going to focus on Abraham. Now, Abraham was an elderly man, and so was his wife. And God, first of all, he spoke to Abraham before he gave these promises. He spoke to Abraham, but that's just a drawing of Abraham, so you can see a bit more what it was like and the sort of clothes that they wore. when I was out on my walk, I got a stick. Don't know if you can see it, but that would be a sort of a natural stick that he would have used to help him to walk. They used to use sticks, and these days we have modern walking sticks, don't we? Now, Abram lived, this is a world globe, he lived in a place, do you know what flag this is? I don't suppose you do. Your mummies and daddies might not even know. It's got 3 green stars on it. It's the Iraqi flag. In modern day Iraq, that's where Abram was living, in a place called and that was when God told him to go to another place. Do you think Abram, do you think he was obedient or not? Or do you think he was like Adam and Eve and disobeyed? No, he was obedient. Now, this flag, what flag is that from? That's the United Kingdom's flag. That's our flag, isn't it? Or Britain. And that's where we are. And over here is where is. Now, it wasn't called Iraq in those days. It was called Babylonia. Now, the people of Iraq, or Babylonia, were a nation, are a nation. The people of Britain, we're a nation, aren't we? And that includes everybody that lives in the area, in the country. If you've ever been to Cyprus on holiday, on this map, you can see Cyprus over here. Now on this map, it's the ancient Middle East, and you can see over here is where Abraham set off, circa 2000 BC, that's before Jesus. Don't worry about that, it's a long time ago. And he travelled up, I don't know if you can see the dotted line. He travelled with his dad and his cousins and his rest of his family, and they took their sheep with them that they had, and they went on camels, and they lived in tents, and they took food and provisions with them, and spare clothes and things, just like in that game, Kim's game, some of the things, water they would have taken, although there were wells that they could stop off at to get water. And they travelled from up to Haran, and at Haran, God told Abraham to go to Canaan, and he did. Sadly, at Haran, his dad died, but he was elderly. I mean, Abraham was elderly. You don't normally think of going on big travels when you're elderly, particularly on camels and things. But God told Abram, and he was obedient, and he did what God told him. And he continued round. See this dotted line here? He came round and down. Oh, down here. Do that again. He came down the dotted line, and he went to Shechem. And at Shechem, God promised to give Abraham the land of Canaan. But it wasn't for a bit that they went into the land. There were people living there, and then there was a bit of a famine, and so they went over to Egypt. Anyway, God spoke to Abram, and I'll read from the Bible what it says. It says, I will make you, this is God talking to Abram, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all the people on earth will be blessed through you. So God was actually promising descendants. I will give you many descendants, and they will become a great nation. Just like, well, we're a nation, we're a small nation called Britain or United Kingdom. But God was saying to Abraham that from him would come a great nation eventually, and descendants, yet he was elderly and he had no children. And he was wondering how it was all going to happen. So here's a picture of the descendants that God promised to give. Start with one family and go to multiply and multiply and multiply. So there'd be children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren. And God said that it would be just like the night sky. If you go out at night, I don't know if you've ever noticed it on a clear night, you see lots of stars and they twinkle, don't they? And there's loads of them, too many to count. And God said that Abram would have that many descendants or family eventually. And God promised that he would give them the land, the promised land it's sometimes called, or Canaan, a lovely place, lovely and green. And God also promised his blessing on Abram and his family. Now, a blessing, we don't normally talk about blessing, but it's something extra that God can give, which is good. Something nice, that's helpful and loving of God. So that's three things that God promise to Abram. So what about us? Well, from our knowledge of our past sessions, we know that God always keeps his promises, doesn't he? He always can be trusted, even if some of our friends or even family can't be always totally trusted. And he keeps his promises. Now, at the moment, there are lots of people drawing rainbows, aren't there? Maybe you've drawn a rainbow. And rainbows come from the story just before Abram in the book of Genesis. And that's about Noah and the ark and the flood that happened, where the whole earth got flooded. And at the end of it, God promised Noah that he would put a sign in the sky, which was the rainbow, a sign that he would keep his promise that he was making, his covenant it's called, with Noah, to never flood the world, the whole world again. So although we sometimes hear about floods here and there, the whole world has never been flooded since then, because God always keeps his promises. Now what about us? We have been in Sparks having a promise, haven't we? Now what do you think? Would you manage, do you think, this next week to do a promise that we could all agree on? Do you think you could do your best to be kind to someone each day this week? And then maybe your mums and dads will make a note of it, and then when we all get back into the church building again, we can count up how many promises you've kept, and we'll see who the winner is, shall we? If you don't manage it one day, well, that's a shame. But keep going and see if each day we can be kind to someone. I think that will make a difference, won't it? Right, let's pray now. Dear Lord, let's do our prayer drill. One, hands out, arms folded, and bow our heads. Dear God, we thank you that you make and always keep your promises. Thank you for Abram. Thank you that he trusted you and obeyed you, unlike Adam and Eve. We pray for ourselves and our families and friends that you will keep us safe, and we ask that you will make the poorly people better. Amen. Now it's craft time. So we've got a few ideas today for craft. I'll just get them. So, the pictures that I've shown you today, we've got in a smaller format that you can colour in. We've made it into a booklet, so all your mums and dads have to print off the sheets linked to this story time, and then you can just colour them in. And then when you've coloured them in, your mums and dads will cut them out for you, or you can do it yourself if you're able and you can be safe with scissors. And then they'll get mum and dad to put staplers down there. So There's the picture about God promises Abraham. There's the descendants. There's the land. And there's the blessing. You can draw patterns around it, but don't go over the words. You can do the smiling like I had, or you can put little jewels on, whatever you want to, or stars, whatever you've got handy at home. Or there's just a sheet that you could colour in with stars on to remind us about the night sky, which says, God made promises to Abram. God promised descendants, land and blessing. From the book of Genesis, chapter 12, verses 1 to 9. So there's that. You could do that, like that. Just be careful not to colour over the words. Or there's this sheet. If you do this in card, it's better if you can. It's a bit flimsy on paper like I did. I put some patterns on there, again with the same verses on, and then you cut out the men, being careful with the middle bits. But with card, I'll show you some of these. This is what you could do. You could link them all together. And this is how many descendants. Loads and loads and loads of descendants. And you can cut out some card and then just sellotape their arms together. Or you can make Abram. There's Abram. And you start off with this figure again. It's on a sheet, so your mum or dad can print it off for you. And then there's some cutouts. So let's take all the bits off. You may need to use glue like I've done with the beard because it kept falling off. But when you're cutting out, this is a headdress because they wore them in those days. There are these little tabs and you have to cut carefully around and then fold them back around the figure. If you cut one off by mistake, just sellotape it back. It'll be okay. So boys and girls, you go from this cut out cardboard man to Abraham with his beard and his clothes on and his stick. Okay, which you've decorated, and being careful with the tabs to fold them over. And then remember, we've got the summary of what we've been learning about Abraham today on the back. And stick that with Pritt stick. So children, I hope that you'll make some lovely things, and for next week we're going to have an art wall, which we hope you will send photos of the things that you have made at home with your mum and dad's permission and with their phone. Presumably they will take the picture. If you send the picture to photos@holytrinityspittle.org with your first name and age, and if you're in a group, say which group you belong to. So for us it's Spark, but if there are other children watching, please, we'd love to see your work as well, but no photos of the children. Okay, just the work itself. So we look forward to seeing some lovely pieces of work, and next week we'll be able to show you some of them, hopefully. Wow. Hope you've enjoyed today. We look forward to hearing and seeing you next week via this, and we do hope that you'll keep safe and have an enjoyable week. And remember that promise that we've all made, that we're going to try our best to be kind to someone each day this week. So take care and see you next week.